SeleniumLibrary and how it has been grown up. So,
yeah, thank
please,
you.
Tatu.
Thank you. Well, I'm the poor guy who had left all the stuff to be done, but it's not poor me. There has been many people supporting me, and it has been a really great joy to make the new Selenium Library 3.0 out. And I have learned a lot of things from the community, and I think we have a good community. Who thinks that we have a good community? Less lands than I did expect, but at least some, about half or something like that. And I have been part of the community about 7 and 8 years. I started as a normal user, and I asked a lot of stupid questions, and then I got really good responses, and I thought that, wow, that's really good. That's something that I would like to be part of it. And after a few years, I noticed, somehow, naturally, organically, I noticed that I started answering to questions. And then after a few years, Pekka asked people to become a lead developer for the Selenium 2 library. And with some art twisting, I promised to be that guy. And I don't regret. It has been a wonderful joy, a wonderful trip to develop that kind of new thing and the Python 3 support and stuff that. But what is there? When in year and a half ago, we were in one of the Robot Framework meetups, and we were having a few beers with Pekka, and we were thinking about how we are going to build the new architecture for the Selenium library. And then back it was called Selenium 2 library, but that name also changed. And we wanted to make Python 3 support, and by just doing the Python 3 support, it would have been quite complex. We wanted to renew the architecture, just do a little architectural change and get the release out, and well, it didn't go like that. We ended up rewriting a lot of stuff internally, but the goal that we have in mind that we want to refactor the architecture so that it would be easier to understand, that there would be no unnecessary complexity in the library. And by doing that also we wanted to, because in the old library, only public methods were the keywords that you could access and everything else was private. And you would actually have to guess that, can I use this to extend with my own library? It's a private method. Well, everybody else seems to be using that, so let's go with that. And buying also, we wanted to create a new public ID, and there are a bunch of methods that you can actually nowadays use. And these are the public methods that are available in the library instance, which are not keywords. There's the find elements, and the find elements that allows you to find you with the same locator strategy that you can use with the keywords to find you one element or a list of elements. And then, which is also useful, that if you want to create the browser in some complex way, there's also the create web driver keyword, but that doesn't bend all the way to true, and it's sometimes really hard to read and really hard to understand. There's a method for you that you can create your driver in the Python side as you want, and as you please, and then you can call that register driver method, and it will automatically register the driver for you in the Selenium library, and then you can do whatever you want in the browser by using the Selenium library keywords. There are a few others, but they are not that interesting. And then there are some attributes. There is the driver is the most important one. You can access the currently active browser or the driver instance by calling the self.driver from the Selenium library. And then, while thinking, when we are having those few beers with Pekka, we had decided that we want to isolate things, we want to separate things, and we think about, let's build a context object, and I didn't actually have a very good idea what that context object would be, but it sounded a very good idea with the first 2 beers. And during the development, it evolved a thing that allows you to access those public methods and attributes that I previously showed you within your library class. Your library class is isolated, it's nicely contained, it's in your own namespace, But you need access to the driver finding elements in your keywords, so the context provides you access. And it also provides you the access to the other keyword methods in the library. And when I originally writing that context, I think, okay, it's used perhaps in the keywords class, perhaps not everywhere. But in the end, it was so cool thing to have in the library that everything nowadays uses, almost everything. There are some few methods that don't, or few classes that don't use it, but everything uses keyword. Classes that define keywords use context, and classes that do something else, like defined element, also use a context to get access to something that they need, so that they can live in isolation and peace with themselves. Then there's this base object, how difficult word for a Finn. And it provides you a few things. There's the library component class and the context-aware class. When I was writing code, actually Pekka did say to me that it's really boring for you to write self.context.driver, that make a wrapper for it, so you can write self.driver. It's less words, easier to write, makes the code easier to read. So we created these kind of wrapper classes, and they provide me the shortcuts for the context object, so that I don't have to write that long. I save 4 characters. That's really long when you're typing. And it also provides me methods that are commonly used between the different library classes or somewhere. It's usually shared between many classes. And differences between those two classes that the library component is used mainly in the classes that implement keywords for you. And there's the context-aware, which is meant for the classes that don't implement classes like the element finder, but those are really important for you, so that you can also there use your shortcuts and nice kind of things. And it provides you unified locking, which is based on the robot locker and that kind of stuff. And then there's a Python libcore, which is a project that Pekka did write. It handles all the stuff that we use to publish keywords by using the Robot Framework Dynamic Library API. It has a really nice interface. You call one method, provide classes, and then it will do the rest. It will provide you the discovery of the keywords, discovery of the arguments, and discovery of this and that, which is required by the dynamic library interface. And that also says that we change from the static interface to the dynamic library interface. And we nowadays decorate keywords with a keyword decorator that we want to say that this is really a keyword. And it was quite a long journey. It took us year and a half from the 1.8 release to make a 3.0 release. And what we got Python 2 and Python 3 support. And what we also got is more important. We also got that the Selenium library has a new heart. It has a new kind of like a baseline that how you can build your new libraries with it. When I was making it, I really fell in love, if you can say that you fell in love in code, but I kind of fell in love in code, how that Selenium new architecture is made. And in my job, I have used the same architecture to build other custom libraries for my company, and it's really cool and neat way to build libraries. It's a really nice way to build libraries. You can have your own namespaces and test in isolation. It eases your testing in the unit testing level. You can test your class in isolation. You don't have that many things to mock. But in the end, because we were rewriting so much stuff, we threw away a lot of code, and that broke, and we are sorry about it, but we did broke many of the extensions. I think we broke almost all the extensions that are available currently in the open source world. I also broke all my code in the work, which relies on the Selenium 2 library. But in the other hand, it wasn't that hard to fix. For me, at least for all my own libraries, it was really quite easy to fix. For me, it was a job. It was not that. And when I was developing the library, previous libraries that I built, big or largest, medium-sized one, I always used the static interface or perhaps the dynamic interface in the library interface. But when I used the dynamic library interface, it felt me that I'm somehow free. I'm free to do more things. I'm not anymore restricted by the static API that Robot Framework offers. It's a really cool API if you're just doing 1 or 2 or 3 or less than 10 keywords, perhaps. But when you are building a bigger library, I feel nowadays that the dynamic library is the way to go, or dynamic library interface is the way to go. It gives you more freedom, and you don't have to do tweaking to go around with the limitations. And also those context objects, library content, and context-aware classes are, even though they are quite simple wrappers, I kind of fell also in love with the wrappers that I like wrapping because it makes the code writing easier. It also makes the reading the code really easier because if there's a word in between which says context, you always have to think when you look by the outside eyes that what the heck is context, but it just says driver. Everybody that is at least a little bit familiar with the Selenium, okay, that's the web driver. And it became a really nice thing to have. I learned a lot of things, and it was not too difficult. I'm not poor me. It was a fun joy, a fun ride. Ooh, 1 thing, 2 more. But how to then extend? Then, of course, there's documentation in the Robot Framework user guide, and it's true. You have to do those things how the user guide says. But you should also go and look about the Python core project documentation and examples that how that stuff actually works. It has a lot of wonderful things that you can use when you build your own libraries. And it's a package nowadays you can install and have a dependency for your project. And where is Pekka? You should improve the documentation, please. There are a lot of examples, but documentation, can we have it? Perhaps tomorrow in the sprints? And, well, there are nowadays, or there is a 3 ways to extend. You can get the active instance, you can inherit, but also what came as a new idea when I was building this presentation. Oh, you can also add new keywords directly to the Selenium library with a twist. But that's the last part. And this is the usual normal way. If you're just building something small, if you're building perhaps a custom-specific logic for your own thing, perhaps you have building a date picker, which I built for my previous company, getting the active instance, having them in the module, and then doing something really simple. Getting the active instance, there's nothing that would stop you using it. If you're just building few keywords, this is a nice way to go. It gets in the line 13, second last line, it gets the active instance out of the robot framework, and then it returns the desired capabilities in the Selenium library, driver.desired capabilities. And then you have a dictionary in hand which tells you the desired capabilities. And whatever you want to call from the driver, you can use all those same things. And then, but if you're building something a little bit more complex, and perhaps you want to put your stuff in the own namespaces or own classes, then you can divide your keywords in the new class, like it does in line 5, and then you have your own new library, which is in line 15, the extend Selenium library, which inherits the Selenium library. And then in the new class, there's the new open browser keyword, and then it gets the original keyword in line 12 and 13 and calls that by the format the URL, and it opens a Chrome browser. And unfortunately, what we also did break in the backward incompatibility is that you cannot anymore do that kind of things that you call from the inherited class the keywords that are available. You cannot do any more super braces, SeleniumLibrary, and the method name. That, unfortunately, doesn't anymore work. You have to find a class which implements the methods. You have to provide the context object for it. And then from the instance, you can call the method that you want to call from the underlying library. And then in the new that extended SeleniumLibrary, we call the SeleniumLibrary init so that all the variables and attributes are initialized. And then the only thing you need to actually do is to call the line 18, which is add library components, and give list of classes that has the context, which is the library that you're using. And then that method comes from the robot Python library core, again, a difficult word. And then it will do the discovery of keywords and all the stuff that is required by the dynamic API. And then you have a new library that contains that new open browser keyword, and it contains also all the keywords from the inherited Selenium library. And then this is the example that how you can extend or add keywords directly to the Selenium library. In that line 7, there is the new keyword class that defines the same open browser keyword, and it does the same thing as the previous example. And then the line 16 is a new library, but it's also a listener. Who has used listeners before? Yeah, good for you. Rest of you, go look it up. They're really cool. You can do wonderful things with it. And basically, it listens what Robot Framework does. And I use, when the suite execution starts, I use that API method from the listener API, and I get the Selenium library active instance out of the Robot Framework. And then from that instance, I again call the add library components methods, and I add the new keyword class into the Selenium library. And then I use the built-in keyword reload library so that the Robot Framework reloads library and digs up the new keywords and the change keywords. I don't remember that you have to call the reload if you only modify the keywords. That I don't remember. But if you're doing new keywords, you have to call it. And then you have extended your Selenium library. Now when you call from Selenium library that open browser keyword and provide the host that you want to go, then it will call that keyword from the open browser keyword from that new keyword class and does the things that you have actually defined. And it doesn't call the original keyword right away. It's really cool. It's really nice. The downside of that is that because you do it on runtime, I haven't seen an IDE that would keep up with that. So when you create new keywords, the IDE doesn't pick up the keywords, and the IDE doesn't know new documentation. But I was thinking that it would be really nice to extend this function. You could, when you initialize or import the Selenium library, that we could provide your interface, perhaps in the next releases, that you could import the extensions, and then we could automatically add the new libraries into the Selenium, new keywords to the Selenium library. And, oh, you disabled my Wi-Fi. Well, you have to take my word for it. I wrote a guide all about how to do those extensions, what kind of attributes there are, what kind of methods they are available. There are all those examples that I showed you. They are actually in that extending folder, divided in separate folders. There are also tests that actually prove that stuff actually works, and I don't just say that it works. It is not yet run by the CI, but perhaps in the future it also will be run by the CI, that you can automatically see the results. And then there are a bunch of documentation for that and links to the documentation. And yes, I did cut my presentation a little bit too hard because I'm ahead. Do you have questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Tatu. So, questions?
Just a quick question. What's the advantage of using the extended use case as opposed to just creating another keyword library which sort of inherits from it? For me, the extended use case just confuses issues because now my keywords exist in your library and...
Yeah, you mean between these and these two examples? Kind of. Yeah. Well, I haven't done it. I have done always like this. I have created always a new library. The use case is this, that I have then everything is and then nullibrary and everything people are using. But I've been thinking it for a few days, and perhaps it is more how you want to use libraries, because then that if you're just going to if you're just going to extend with a few keywords, then perhaps I would add those to the Selenium library, so that people would be safe to read the original documentation. Then you would provide perhaps some sort of documentation. It's a little bit unfinished feature, but you can do it if you want it. And we need to polish it a little bit more, that you could say it in the library init that add these extensions, and then the IDEs would work nicely. But it's there. For example, in my work, I usually prefix with the library name. And if I have a lot of different libraries, it's difficult to remember that in which library this keyword actually is, if you have collisions between the keywords. I do. How many actually have collisions with the keywords? Lucky you, I have. And it has come really hard to remember that in which library this particular keyword actually is, if you have a lot of extensions. So therefore, using that you extend the original library becomes tempting, because then you don't have to remember if you get the IDE support working. That's the catch, that there's not. But it is a difficult question which doesn't have a right or wrong answer. I would use this way if I would put all the keywords into one big library, so that the IDEs would work and people would always know, and I would deny the use of the Selenium library, and I would spank them if they do in the code reviews that don't do that. Next. Typical Finnish crowd, no questions.
Do you get a lot of pull requests into your
Depends what you think a lot. We do get pull requests now and then. It's not a lot. I like it because it's on my free time. I don't think that the amount of pull requests is a problem. Sometimes there are really good pull requests. I just read and hit merge. Those are unfortunately very rare. You have to do a lot of effort to people had an idea. They code it themselves. It solves their solution, and they're nice. It's a really nice thing, and they want to say that here's my code. Go and put it in the library. And I look at the code, and almost 9 times out of 10, I ask, where are the tests? Because there is not any. He hasn't write the test. And then I usually then ask them, could you create an issue about it, so we can discuss, perhaps he has a good idea, and perhaps we should really do that kind of stuff in the Selenium library. But perhaps the solution is not general enough. his solution solves the right problem, but it solves in really tiny namespace, and perhaps we had to generalize the problem. And then I asked him to create an issue where we can discuss about the problem, and then we usually end up in a better solution, which is more general, suits for almost all of you, not of course everybody, but most of the people. And we write few acceptance windows are filled, and it's easy to write the code, and then it's easy. He actually remembers to write the test because in the issue tracker we define the issues, and then it's all the flow of the process goes better if one explains his problems in the issue and don't just send code. It's easier. It's somehow more fluent process. Next question.
Can I ask a continuation question?
Yes, of course.
More, like, is this kind of like, I'm thinking this might be one of those libraries where people have a lot to say.
Yeah, people have a lot to say.
Feel very strongly about what this needs to be doing and what they need to do with that. Would you like to see the community contribute more?
Yes, and yes in two ways. I would like to have more contributions. I also would like to have people that work with me more, because it's me and Pekka now, and Pekka is now doing something else, so it's me again, just like in the past. Yeah, you know the feeling. So it would be really nice to have some other people also participate in the project. Perhaps I should write some vision where we should take the project, where we want to be in 5 years, and where we want to be in the short term, and how long for example, I spent time on the project. I spend time in the evenings nowadays, few hours in the day, perhaps 5 or 8 hours in the week. And then it would be really nice to have something actually looking about the issues, what people raise, and then say that close, this is not an issue, actually you have some problem in the configuration, helps to solve the problem in the configuration. I would love to have somebody that has Travis knowledge that would set me stuff would run for the Travis with them. We tested it with the 3.0 release, and if we work also Python 3, Python 2, we tested with the Python and Bibi. What was the other executor in Python? Yeah, that one. But Travis doesn't run with those. It runs with Python 3, Python 2, Firefox, and Selenium. And then I don't know if I break that compatibility. So it would be nice to somebody to make that. That's also a contribution that you can make tomorrow. And there's also a lot of stuff that you can do. Of course, we need people. I need somebody, when I make code, I sometimes, or quite often, make really stupid decisions. I need somebody to say that that's a really bad idea, do something else. And thanks for Pekka guarding me a lot. And I need somebody like that. And there's tons of people that you can participate. I don't even know all the ways. I know these few things that I kind of miss, but I'm pretty sure that there's a need for other kind of things that I don't yet even know. So come shake me from a hand. I'm almost out of time.
Sprints.
Yeah, sprints. Yeah, let's do those. I'm there tomorrow. I have a few issues in the Blackhawk, which I've marked for RoboCon. And it doesn't have to be that. It can be something else also. I have a few issues planned out, but you can also suggest something that you want to work with.
All right. Thank you, Tatu.
Thank you.
Excellent speech. And the T-shirt.